Welcome to the special edition of the NeurologyLive Mind Moments podcast. Tune in to hear leaders in neurology sound off on topics that impact your clinical practice. I'm your host, Marco Meglio, editor with NeurologyLive, and today I have a breaking news story. On July 2nd, 2024, the FDA approved Donanemab, an antiamyloid therapy, as a new treatment for patients with early symptomatic Alzheimer's disease. Marketed under the name Kisunla, the agent is available as a 350 milligram, 20 milliliter once monthly injection for intravenous infusion aimed for those with mild cognitive impairment or mild stage dementia with a confirmed amyloid pathology. With the approval, Donanemab becomes the third anti-amyloid drug to receive FDA greenlight, following the conditional and controversial approval of aducanumab in 2021 and the traditional approval of lecanemab in 2023. Donanemab's approval was based on data from the Phase 3 Trailblazer-ALZ 2 trial, a large-scale study of more than 1,700 patients with early-stage AD. Spanning across 277 medical sites in 8 countries, the study used change in integrated Alzheimer's disease rating scale score as the primary endpoint. Donanemab becomes the first and only medication with evidence to support stopping treatment when amyloid plaques are removed, which can ultimately lower therapy costs and reduce infusions. Following the approval, NeurologyLive caught up with Dr. Joel Salinas, a behavioral neurologist at NYU Langone, to discuss the downstream impacts of Donanemab's approval for the patient and clinician community. He spoke on the importance of patient selection for this drug and the caution in its implementation going forward. Here's Salinas on the positive effects of having a new therapy to the AD community.
I think the approval is going to have a really strong positive impact for patients and families. One is that it'll start to dispel a lot of the myth about not being able to do anything in the case of Alzheimer's disease, which I think we all need to do our part to dispel that myth, because it really gets in the way of people's really motivation to actually even access care. It also will kind of help to motivate people to have conversations earlier when there are early signs of changes going on cognitively. And I think that really will be helpful, especially for early detection and early diagnosis. And then for the field as a whole, I think what we're really seeing is this field of treatment of these conditions is going to start to really shift towards treatment and management using these new medications. And I think the treatment models may begin to slowly look more and more like what we see in oncology, which is very kind of pathology based. And I think having something kind of visual for patients' families to also kind of see that there is disease and how the disease is responding to the treatment could be really helpful. But I think all of these protocols and these potential kind of practices will be evolving. So it is a really exciting time for the field, and I really hope that not only will it motivate more people to go into this field to help to work with these patients, but also it'll help to serve as a really strong market signal, so that way more drug companies will develop additional treatments for patients. My hope is that one day we'll have more treatments than we can even keep track of for these conditions.
While drug development for Alzheimer's disease has ramped up in recent years, there remains a continued effort to identify the right patients for treatment, targeting those earlier in their disease course. With that said, not every patient may be eligible or appropriate for anti-amyloid treatment. Here's Salinas on the considerations and cautions for clinicians when prescribing Donanemab.
I would say my clinical kind of perspective is to really be cautious in determining who is a good choice for this medication. And I think part of it is doing a pretty standardized and thorough evaluation and really making good use of healthcare resources in terms of when we do advanced imaging and any other studies. But more than anything, I would say is to really engage in that kind of shared and supported decision making with the patient and the family, because it's these aren't extremely easy decisions to make, and you have to really be able to translate a lot of the complexity of these clinical trials to a level where not only can they feel comfortable in the decision that they make, but also to have a decent appreciation of what the potential risks and potential benefits are. And I think, as the study of these drugs will be ongoing, we'll have a much better sense. But for now, we also have to be very cautious about how much confidence, and on the flip side, how much reticence we have about these medications. I think we just need to be able to state the facts and then translate, so that way we can help them make the best decision for their healthcare.
Shared decision making between clinicians and patients is vital to ensure treatment success and enhance the probability of positive long-term outcomes. Educating patients on new, novel treatments is important, especially as many may carry safety risks. Here's Salinas on the patient-clinician relationship and improving education and awareness for new treatments like donanemab.
Yeah, I think it always depends on the level of health literacy, but I think if you're able to kind of present it in a way that the real impact on their day-to-day life will have is really helpful. Like, I usually like to give them kind of the example of the factual counterfactual, kind of what would happen over time. And I think that resonates with some patients. But you have to really figure out kind of at what level, they want to have that conversation, what level of detail they want, and what their real concerns are. And beyond just the actual kind of neurobiology and the pharmacologic elements, but also just the system level kind of navigation elements. These medications are adding a significant level of complexity when it comes to kind of coverage and covering expenses and scheduling of studies and follow-up. And so I think patients and family members also need to be prepared. And so it helps to kind of lay the expectations about the level of complexity that will be coming for them when they go through this, but also to reassure them, that they're in a system that will help them navigate it, or then they can always lean on you or kind of your practice to help to figure through those questions. And there's lots of resources, not just from the drug companies, but from other foundations and associations to be able to make it as easy as possible.
There are more than 100 drugs currently in the AD pipeline, with several in high-phase clinical trials. This has been a field that has seen massive growth through research and funding efforts over the recent years. Donanemab, while not the perfect drug, may be another piece to the treatment puzzle for Alzheimer's disease. Here's Salinas one last time with some closing thoughts on the approval and the continued progress in the field.
I'm just so excited that there's just so much happening in this field in such a short period of time. It's a pretty seismic shift, not just in kind of medical treatments, but even just the way that we deliver care with the CMS guide model. So I think there's just a lot here. I think it's really important to help to nurture the pipeline of future neurologists to really take an interest in these types of conditions. There's definitely way more patients than there are neurologists. So we also need to think about how we deliver this care. And on that note, because I think one common theme with these medications is that earlier intervention is more likely to have a greater impact on a person's long-term trajectory of their health span. I think we need to really have these conversations up front, encourage other people within the field to not dismiss symptoms, to really do a thorough evaluation. If you don't have the time or resources, you refer to a specialist or someone else that can do that management for you. But I think we can't really ignore these things anymore. I think we really need to take these symptoms seriously. As every neurologist knows, it's brain, and time is brain. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for the patient.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Neurology Live Mind Moments podcast. To support the show, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, for more neurology news and expert-driven content, visit neurologylive.com.